Yo, what's going on? This is the top 5 best dual dinos in the game. This is going to be a combination of separate dinos. Some are going to be the exact same species of dinosaur. This is based on what I think. And it's also based off of official servers. Now at the number 5 spot, I've got Patchy and Lambio. Because the Patchy's got great kill potential, and the Lambio's got really good survivability, and it supports the Patchy.
You see that distinctive dome skull? 9 inches of solid bone. See, the Pachy's neck attaches at the bottom of its skull, and instead of the back of its head is with reptiles. But when it lowers its head, its neck lines up directly with its backbone, which is perfect for absorbing impact.
Now, the Lambio's got a hide that gives you 25% armor for Patchies, Kentrils, Campers and Stroofies. So that's why I really like this combination. It makes the Patchy so much stronger. Even though the Patchy has great kill potential, it lacks the survivability. And that's where the Lambio comes in. The Lambio gives you that 25% extra armor, and it also gives you heal calls. Your biggest enemy is going to be bleeders, such as Conch, Styrax and Kentrils, and maybe even Suckles if they can get hits on you. But even then, if you play it right, both Patchy and Lambio have got decent speed and pretty good stamina, with both having braced legs, meaning that you can dust things going uphill and downhill. Now the Lambio is supposed to take the main focus of the fight. It's supposed to be pretty much the tank of the team, and the Patchy is supposed to be the DPS. So if you play it really well, you can get people to focus the Lambio, and once the Lambio does decent amount of damage on, say for example, the conchs, then you come in and you start picking off the conchs one by one. Now for the Patchy, I recommend the DPS build. For anyone that doesn't know what the DPS build is, it's just the Patchy with Kickboxer, Charge, not an airhead, and just a normal headbutt. When you dodge, it counts as a jump, hence I use airhead. That gives me that 25% increased damage on anything that I dodge with. Plus Kickboxer gives you that 50% increased damage on your charge. Now for the Lambio, the main thing is the Protector Hide, because that's obviously going to give you that 25% extra armor for your Patchy player. You've got 3 heal calls. One of them is Primal Mend, which is a solo one for yourself when you need to use that. You have Rejuvenating Call, which just increases your group's healing rate by 100% for 30 seconds. And then you've got your main group call that both heals you and your friend and anyone else grouped. I also recommend the normal tail attack for Lambio, as it does knockback and it actually does decent amounts of damage now that it got buffed. So I just feel like that will increase your survivability. Now another thing about the Lambio is it has that rodeo kick, which is insanely broken in my opinion, just because it's got pretty much no cooldown. It doesn't use a lot of stamina. It's like a whole radius, like a whole 360 of an attack, so it's super easy to land. It's just a nightmare for smaller dinos to deal with. Now another thing is the subspecies. I like to use the +3 attack damage for Patchy, just for the extra DPS. And then for the Lambio, I like to use either the +3 heal or the +10 stamina recovery for extra survivability, but that's up to you. I've got the Spino, specifically 2 Spinos. It's pretty basic.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
Just because how strong the Spino is right now, recently its TLC made it really good. Specifically its tail attack, the sweep, does an insane amount of damage, and it just makes it incredibly hard for small dinos to kill you. And even in the water, it's like the tool that keeps you alive the most. You can use it very defensively, and you can even use it offensively, which just makes it amazing in the water for PvP. And your survivability is great because you are semi-aquatic, so you can both use land and water to escape if need be. For example, you would use the land to escape from Kaiwikas and dolphins, and then obviously the water from the other apexes or just a lot of small dinos. Not only this, the claw slam on the Spino right now is really good and really broken, because it just stun locks your enemies. There's 6 hits and it deals knockback, but recently they've changed something about it that makes it impossible for dinos to get away from your claw slam. It just locks them in place and they just can't get away. Now the only problem that the Spino has, so obviously it's really strong and it's a semi-aquatic and really easy to use, but the problem is mega packs, which obviously you just can't avoid these days on official until they add the new matchmaking system. But even then, against mega packs have to bring a lot of water dinos to counter Spinos. The only time I've really died on this thing was in the 2v6 scenario against other aquatics. I personally don't really like to play Apexes just because it's a slower paced, but I know a lot of people that do, so I decided to put the Spino at number 4 because out of all the Apexes, it's probably got the best kill potential just because of the claw slam. As you can see, stuff just cannot get away and it's really annoying to deal with when you're a small dino. And if you need to escape from a Rex or Titan, you can easily just get in the water. Now before I go any further into the video, I just want to say that Path is going through a lot of balance changes and TLCs. So right now this is what I think is the best, but this could very easily change because obviously the consistent combat changes, TLCs could just make a really good dual dino and nasty combinations. But as of right now, this is what the list is. Now out of all of the dinos on the list, the Spino actually plays the least into another Spino compared to the other stuff on the list. But it's still really good, and it does have that 25% armor increase for your group members, which if there's 2 of you guys running that, you can have 2 minutes of 25% increased armor, which is pretty good. Coming in at the number 3 spot is Dasps, because Dasps play really well into each other, probably the most out of any other dino in the game. For example, its Sense, Tyrant's Ally, gives you 30% increased armor if you have 2 Dasps in a team, which is a lot of armor. Not only that, the Dasp has got a decent speed, it's got a really good precise turn and a decent turn radius, especially for a bigger, stronger dino. Not only that, you also have Tyrant's Roar. So Tyrant's Roar increases your damage by 15% each stack and it goes up to 2. So with your friend, you guys get 30% armor and damage just through those 2 themselves. Not only that, the Dasp has got a pretty good toolkit and it's very versatile in the bites that it can use. For example, you can use the heavy bite, which I like to use right now because it's the most well-rounded, and it also hasn't received a nerf unlike the piercing bite. The piercing bite is great for fighting bigger, heavier opponents with lots of armor because it ignores armor and weight, but it's not so good for smaller opponents as it just does the same. Now your other option is the shatter bite, which is also really good because it's just a chain of bone snaps, shatters, sorry, it fractures, and they just slow the smaller things down, making it really easy to kill them if you can land those bites on them. It's also got the bone snap, which is the least likely that I would use, as I just think it's the worst out of the 3, as it's very easy to see, you know, it's really easy to just see it coming. So people, especially smaller things, just move away. Now I like to use the fin scutes for the Dasp because it just makes it easier to fight smaller dinos. Also, before I go any more into this, you did just see me run off of a cliff. I accidentally pressed the sprint button, and that was that. So I use the fin scutes just because it's better for fighting smaller dinos. They've also changed the impact that it gives you now. It's not as big of a deal if something's heavier than you. And with all the weight changes to a lot of the dinos, now there's not really that many dinos that are heavier than the Dasp. A lot of it is either the same or lighter, which is perfect for the Dasp. That's what you want. Now with the recent changes to tail attack doing more damage, it also just makes Dasp really good at fighting smaller dinos now that tail attack is somewhat viable. The funny thing is about the footage right here is you can see these guys are actually running a combo that I put in my top 5 for best duels, but they've got way more people. They had 4 Patches and a Lambio, and now they obviously have a Styrak, but They got absolutely, we killed them, even though it was a 4v2, 5v2. And it kind of just goes to show how strong the DASP is, but at the same time, even though I rank these dinos high, doesn't mean that you're going to be good with them. It's all about skill and how good you are at the game. These are dinos that, if you are good at the game, you could definitely use to the full advantage and just destroy all the other players. Now, the only downside of the DASP, honestly, is just the hit reg on its normal bite. You have to be very, very accurate. So yeah, that's the only annoying part about the DASP, is its bite's got like a terrible hit reg, specifically for fighting smaller things. But other than that, the DASP is pretty solid. Just make sure you're fighting with your friend to get all the buffs you can on the DASP. Coming in at the number 2 spot, I've got Kentros, because they've got really good survivability, really good stamina, and they play off of each other really well as well. Now with Spiked Gathering ×2, you get 20% armor, plus another 20% damage reflection, and you also don't take any damage reflection from your own teammates, so that's a plus as well.
Yeah, boy!
You can now heal through combat timer, making bleed really good and very valuable. That way, if you put bleed on someone, you can just out heal them throughout the whole entire fight, and there's not really much they can do, because the Kentro's got plenty of stamina and it's pretty fast, so it can just stay on them. Besides maybe like Pycnos. Pycnos are Conks, Alios, stuff like that. They're just faster than the Kentro and have more stamina than it. So the Kentro can play the long game, but honestly it doesn't even need to, because of how broken Detonate is. All the bleed damage that you end up doing to someone, you can just use Detonate to turn it all into raw damage, and it insta-kills them pretty much. I've 1v1 Sukkos with this thing, DASPs and many other things. It's really good, and it also has directional tail attacks. That way it's more about how good you are and skill, rather than just random tail hits. Even though the Kentro is very defensive, it has really good kill potential, because it can outstam a lot of things. And also, if they make too many mistakes and get too much bleed on them, that Detonate just finishes them off way before they even know it. Kentro's turn radius isn't the greatest, but those directional tail hits help it a lot. When you have a second Kentro, it's just easier to cut people off, and you guys can switch out. Not only that, with 2 Kentros you obviously get that Spiked Gathering, so I'm going to explain how Spiked Gathering works. Per Miragaya, Kentro or Stego, you get 10% armor, 10% reflective damage, and you also just don't take any reflective damage from your teammates, but still really good. And obviously the more Kentros you have, Stegos or Miragayas, it goes up, and it can stack up to 5 times, so you could get like 50% armor increase and 50% reflective damage, which is really good. Now the reason the Kentros are so good together is because they build into each other really well. Now for example, the Detonate build, you need a lot of bleed for it to work really well, and all of Kentro's attacks do bleed, and also hitting the Kentro itself does bleed to people. And sometimes you can't get there with the Detonate, so your friend has Detonate also. That way you guys can both make sure to get the kill. Not only that, with Spiked Gathering you're a lot more tankier, and the only problem the Kentro has is it's very squishy. But with Spiked Gathering it's actually pretty tanky. Now I also recommend the Dense Plates hide, as the Kentro's health recovery is really bad, so it'll give you that 50% more health recovery. And I also recommend Death Rattle for that extra damage output. Now, the reason the Kentro's at my number 2 and not my number 1, even though it's very strong and can kill a lot of things, is because it's such a defensive dino. Sometimes it lacks the kill potential because it's so defensive focused, to sometimes it just can't finish the kill, and people get away because you don't really have a frontal attack that much, or they're just a little bit faster. The Kentro is a speed at 1050. You could put brace legs on, but I feel like you need long distance runner for that survivability. Now at the number 1 spot, I've got the Pycno and the Metri. Now the reason I have these two together is because I feel like they work really well together. They kind of cover each other's weaknesses. For example, the Metri is got a speed of 1050, a really good turn radius, and it has healing calls. The only problem with the Metri is once you're out of stamina, then you're out. Also, it doesn't do a lot of damage, whereas the Picno, it does a lot of damage, plus it has a call that increases your stamina recovery by 40% while trotting. And if you pair that up with Metri's Hustle, that gives you increased trotting speed, that means that you can gain a lot of your stamina back just from trotting at a very fast rate. For example, the Picno has got the fastest trot in the whole entire game, so that's just walk speed. Paired up with Metri's Hustle, you're pretty much as fast as dinosaurs sprinting when you're literally walking, especially uphill and downhill with braced legs. It goes really crazy. So that just increases both the Picnos and the Metri's survivability by a little bit. Now the Picno does lots of damage with its head slam, so it makes up for the Metri's low amount of damage it does. Also the headbutt does a pretty good amount of damage as well. Now the only problem with the Picno is that it has a very bad turn radius, and it's very big, so it gets stuck on apexes. And it's also just kind of squishy with a bad health recovery. The Metri covers all of that I just mentioned, because it has the heal calls for when you do get stuck on apexes and you do get put low. That way you don't have to deal with that slow health recovery. Also just has that good turn radius that the Picno lacks, and that helps you kill the small things like patches, conks and stuff that just do a lot of turning, and you just can't stay on them because you don't have the best turn radius. Whereas the Metri does that really good, and they just have a hard time fighting the Metri. So the Picno's the hammer of the team, and the Metri is just the support. That doesn't mean that the Metri can't get aggressive, it just means that he needs to stay alive for the combo to work. The Metri needs to be really good at just surviving, but at the same time putting on pressure, that way they don't just focus the Picno that does all the damage. Now it's also the Picno's job to make sure the Metri doesn't get overwhelmed or just focused, and make sure you're putting on damage and really punishing people for attacking the Metri. Now you've seen there I made a big mistake and got bone snapped because I got stuck, and I just shouldn't have went for that charge that close to the other Rex. Now I'm really low, but I do have the heal call, so I'll be able to get back in the fight really fast. But the problem is they do have a Patchy and a Latin right here. So what do I do? The best thing I can do here is just run away. Obviously I got one hit in just to get it in, but I do need to get away and let that heal call go through as much as possible. That way I can somewhat defend myself, and as you can see I actually survive because of that heal call, and my Metri got here on time and these guys just backed away and couldn't finish the kill. And that just shows how great the survivability of both Picno and Metri are, even when you get in those situations where you get really low. For example, if I was just two Picnos, that just wouldn't have worked. I probably would have got finished. Now, the reason I rank this the highest is I just feel like it's the most aggressive one that you can get with, and it's also just the most fun to play. I like to play fast dinos with a lot of kill potential, and you still have that survivability just because of the heal calls. The most important things for me when I'm ranking these dinos is first, kill potential, secondly, survivability, and thirdly, how fun the dino is to play. That's the order that I have them. How fun a dino is to play isn't as important as the other two, but it still kind of is just good to enjoy a dino that is also good at killing and both surviving, as you'll just get way less bored of just playing the game and the dino in general, rather than, for example, playing maybe something slower and you don't get as much action as you would as a smaller dino.